I don't think I can go to the store anymore without absolutely crashing out. You keep seeing things get on mainstream media now. It's like they're just realizing how desperate people are truly getting at the store. Just how much the weekly cost of groceries is getting higher and higher, and people are just actually really struggling at this point. It's not just people complaining on TikTok. It's not just people complaining on YouTube. People actually suffer, and it's getting harder, and it's getting more difficult for them. But I guess if you present it with a smile from an attractive woman, it's really going to lessen the blow and calm us down a bit. I think that's the goal here.
No surprise if you're a grocery shopper in your household that the cost of groceries continue to go up. So I've been talking with grocery experts, industry analysts who are watching this and looking at the government data just as we are. And they say there's three main factors for what's happening to your groceries and why you're paying more at the checkout. It's labor costs, it's tariffs, and it's climate. In fact, if you take a look at coffee prices overall, coffee, for example,
it's greed. Mostly it's greed.
Up 20% compared to a year ago, up more than 20%, in fact. And we're also seeing this across imported produce and other places. And so I wanted to know, okay, what happens next? Does it get better? Does it get worse? Does it stay the same? When can we expect prices to stabilize? And experts say, so long as there's a labor shortage and tariffs stay in play, you can expect your grocery bill to continue to get a bit more expensive.
See, that's the thing. They're saying that it's starting to get bad now, but it's been increasing for a while, right? This summer we saw the price of food go up in a rate that it hasn't gone up really since the pandemic, and that's only increasing at this point. One of the things that people have really failed to account for, there was a big freak out over the tariffs that happened at the beginning of the year and throughout spring. But people really failed to understand that most of the companies that rely on imported goods or imported parts, they really did stock up on their inventory. And what you're starting to see now is the depletion of that inventory. And that's one of the things we were calling, not just on this channel, but economists everywhere. What they were saying was that when holiday season comes around, there's going to be a lot of struggle. Because that inventory would be depleted, that means that consumers are going to start seeing the prices inflate. They're going to start seeing the prices go up. The consequences of the tariffs have worked their way finally down the supply chain to the consumer. And that's what we're starting to see as prices go up. And they will continue to go up because there's no loosening of these tariffs. There's no loosening of the restrictions that the American people have levied upon them. And of course, greed is always going to be a constant in the United States and will juice our products every inch it travels on that supply chain. So we can mask it and we can make it look attractive by having someone with a smile present us with this information. But the reality of what people are facing sounds more like this.
It's a highway robbery. When I see the prices of chicken and it's $12 for 2 pounds of chicken or a $7 box of cereal, it's absolutely ridiculous.
About $500 a week on groceries. I have a family of 6. So it's outrageous. We spend more on our grocery bill than we do on our mortgage.
See, that's what it's really all about. It's the working class people that are getting hit by the price hikes the most. A lot of it, honestly, is just price gouging as we see a corporate consolidation of the market and the supply chain. Just think that 85% of the market when it comes to poultry, beef, and pork are owned by 4 companies. 4 companies, that's it. They control that. They are the buyers, right? They're the ones who buy from the farms and they tell the farms, hey, we're only going to pay this much. So even though the corporations, because they control, they monopolize that marketplace, they're getting these goods at a discount. They're increasing the cost on the consumer, blowing their own profits through the roof while at the same time robbing the American population who is going through a cost of living crisis that we've not been through in living memory. It's a kind of greed that should be shunned, should be addressed, and should be illegal. And you see grocery stores like Albertsons and Kroger's trying to have a merger, and that being blocked in several Democratic states because, again, it creates a monopoly. There's a reason why when you go through your towns right now, what you don't see is a lot of local markets. If you're like me, you never really saw local markets, local grocery stores. The big grocery stores took over and they undercut everyone. And once those grocery stores, the local grocery stores, shut down, they could raise the prices because there wasn't any competition. By having 2 of the biggest grocers in America combined, that would give them a pure monopoly of the vast majority of the market. And too much leverage to actually manipulate the price of goods and to price gouge. And there has been reports on it. And there's already been lawsuits filed against Kroger and Albertsons for doing so. And I think that you're going to see more of those as time goes on, as we see more of a backlog of goods coming from an agricultural side. As soybeans and corn lose their demand to be exported, America's going to have a glut of these things. Farmers, they can hold on to them as long as they can to see if the market recovers, but it's going to have to go somewhere. You know, the farmers, they have bills to pay, and when they can't pay those bills, they lose the farm. So it's going to force them to sell it. And it's going to force them to sell it to very few buyers, because these aren't really the kind of things that you're buying at the store to put on your table. We're talking about soybeans. We're talking about corn, sunflower, things that go into the processed foods. Really, that's the cash cow of the United States, and that's what's most heavily subsidized. But when the price of those things go down, not only do the farmers suffer, I know that a lot of you think that, hey, who cares about that? You should. But at the same time, these companies are charging us top dollar. That is only greed. So you can blame it on the tariffs, which I do. You know, you can blame it on droughts and market fluctuations, which of course you can. But in the end, really, when you look at this in its entire picture, a lot of it's just coming from corporate greed. And of course, bad decisions by this administration. Of course, it's a big part of this, because the corporate consolidation of power in general within the United States is causing a lot of conflict in every sector of our country. And there doesn't seem to be any address to it. You hear grievances from the farmers themselves, right? A lot of them who voted for these, 82% of farmers voted for this administration, and a lot of them are suffering very much so from the tariffs.
This is my 39th crop. I started in 1986, the year I graduated high school. I could plant an acre of beans in 1986 for 30 bucks. It irritates me that you don't have the guts to acknowledge that the people do not pay the tariffs. I don't care if it's John Deere, Case, Caterpillar, all that stuff is outsourced overseas. And the guy that pays it is the guy that purchased it. I can buy a bearing for a combine, and it's made in Taiwan or who knows where. Parts have over doubled in the last year, if you can get them. The dealer at Marshall has a backlog for almost 4 months because they can't get parts because of Trump's stupid tariffs. I think agriculture has taken a heck of a hit on a lot of misinformation, and he is not helping the farmer. I mean, we farm about 3,500 acres. We are going to be so far in the red. When are you going to stand up for us instead of kissing his ass for these trade deals? And the tariffs. More so the tariffs than the trade.
You know, I bust the balls of farmers a lot, but honestly, I've met so many farmers in my life that I love, and especially, you know, the ones in my family. But with that said, the condemnation that actually should be applied in response to the effects of the tariffs in the agricultural sector is just, it's deafeningly silent. And to ask the politicians are absolutely afraid to not just question this administration, but any effect, right? Not even to acknowledge that the tariffs are having a negative impact on agriculture. You know, if a part for your harvester, your combine, is 4 months late, right? You can't get it before it's time to actually implement that machine and harvest whatever you're growing, then really you have nothing. I mean, hopefully you can rely on a neighboring farm or a relative or somebody else who might have that equipment, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. You're going to see a lot of farms shut down because of that. This is a bad thing. This is a bad thing. And this only creates more scarcity in the market. And when we have scarcity in the market, the prices go up. Yes, greed is a thing, price gouging is a thing, and that will always be there during a crisis. But at the same time, if you compound the amount of gouging and greed that you have in the system already, and then you put scarcity on top of that, which is only going to organically drive prices up, then you have a combination for famine. It sounds a little bit crazy, I understand that, but it is possible. It's not impossible. I think at this point it's not even improbable. I think that it's incredibly probable at this point because people, like the woman in the video said, you know, they're paying for groceries. It exceeds the cost of their mortgage. The food costs more than their home does. You know, some people, they can't even get the essentials, the necessities. And that's the tragic part. Because again, who does this hit the most? It hits the working class, and they're being squeezed. They're being squeezed by the government and corporations as much as possible. Because on one hand, they have the corporations who are trying to juice them and raise the prices to get as much as they can, knowing how much they can pay. Well, at the same time, if you are having a product come in from overseas, or if a company, a grocery store, they're getting their products from overseas, they spread load the cost of the tariffs over everything. So from two ends, the American people are getting screwed. That's really what it comes down to. And it's going to get worse because there's no one trying to stop it. And the American people are mostly quiet about it. The politicians are certainly silent about it on both sides. I see no one actually moving towards strike any kind of policy that's going to correct this. I have a problem with government controls on prices, but I think that a time has to come where government controls are put in place. America has not been at a place before, I think, in history, where the cost of goods run up to a point where the cost of living just cannot meet that. And there's profound consequences in that. Of course, I want to talk about the impact of insurance and taxes on houses in the Gulf and how it's just causing a flood of people to lose their homes, especially those who are the most vulnerable, the elderly in America, people who are on fixed incomes, the disabled. There's a lot of tragedies that are happening right now, and there's no accountability actually being had. There's no one actively trying to fix this because anytime there's any kind of news about these things, distraction comes next, and they count on you to be distracted. They count on you to see, no matter how bad things are getting in your life, or in the life of your children, or in the life of your neighbors, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your family, whoever, that you'll be distracted. That you have the assumption that those in power will take hold of the situation at some point. But we've only seen a steady and slow decline now to the point where people are putting their groceries on layaway. And it comes a time where that's just not going to be enough, and crime will rise, and you will no longer be safe taking your groceries to your car. And that would be the reality. And that is going to be the reality if nothing changes. But prices are going up, nothing's happening, America's kind of screwed. You guys have a good one.